Popp, you went through yours in 2007, 2008, something?
2006, 7. I think it was done at the 8 of. I think it was my ass raping was completed, I believe, at the end of 07. And I think there might have been a forced blowjob at the beginning of 08 from the court.
You were just applying the ointment to your torn rectum when I showed back up again.
Okay.
Yes.
Which was 2009, the beginning of 2009.
Well, I was married for 9 years. We call it 6 years active, 3 years reserve. The divorce process was milked for 3 years by my ex-wife's attorney, who was a real shit show. For the most part, he was just rubber stamping everything on the way. This was in the early 90s, so it was recently post-Rose, post-Veterans Judicial Review Act. Nobody knew what was going on, but they said Washington law, yada, 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 blah. And come to find out, he should have been disbarred, just thrown out of the business. Now, back then, I didn't know what was going on. Now I know. Now, just to put it on the table, you may have heard of a thing called statute of limitations, where it says basically if you wait too long, you can't do anything about it. You with me?
Yeah.
Yep.
So what they did in that public sodomostomy, whatever.
Sodomostomy, write that down.
Sodomostomy.
Steve.
What they did to you in the 2005, 6, 7, 8 timeframe was during part of the most brutal time frame where we had a huge increase in loss of veterans because of just the whiplash from the active military operations, the stop loss, the devastation to the families, the divorce process, and self-deletion. So that was probably the biggest wave that I saw. So the fact that you survived that is a good thing. But did you know that void is void now and forever? Void ab initio means void from the moment it happened.
Inception.
Void can be challenged at any time under any circumstances. Now, it doesn't mean you have to go back after your ex, but you were deprived due process of law by an illegal act by at least one judge. And that collodofostomy that I just mentioned was, anyways, I couldn't say that word again.
Sodomostomy.
Sodomostomy.
There you go. Thank you. But the fact that happened, you see, you could still sue that judge for misconduct, and you could still sue the state for damage done by the destruction of your family for profit. The state itself profited off of you and the damage.
Yeah.
Bob just mentioned something I want to touch on. He mentioned Washington law, and Popp mentioned this right at the beginning of the show. You're talking about case law. This case we watched this morning in Tennessee Court of Appeals, Boyd Curry. The attorneys mentioned there's a case called Vlack, there's a case called Hammond. Attorneys love to reference case law, but case law doesn't mean shit if it gets around the statute. I hate it when attorneys argue case law. I don't give a shit what the case law says. What does the statute say?
Right.
If the case law is standing law, but it violates the statute, it doesn't mean a damn thing.
The last attorney I worked for, she would get hit with case law all of the time. I had worked for 2 major corporate firms prior to that, and I knew about the statute thing that you're talking about. And to her delight, she discovered that I knew my way around statutes, and I would just shoot down these attorneys on the opposing counsel. I actually had an attorney on opposing counsel call me, screaming at me, and I said, "Suck it up, I don't care."
Because they love to bury you with this bullshit.
Yeah.
That you'll get lost in all the rabbit holes of case law.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So you get lost in the cluster fuckery sauce of family court.
Yeah. I'm the guy who's going to crack your door, roll a grenade through it, and shut it. Just see what happens. I know how to do that legally now. I know how to use law to. I roll statute grenades through your door.
Nice.
Well, I've been fortunate that on the few occasions that I've really stood my ground and challenged the bullshit, that I didn't get hurt worse.
Yep.
I know that a lot of the veterans who use even the tiniest bit of stubbornness that I had are being thrown in jail like it's going out of style. Like LaRon got tossed in jail last week, and others that are getting hit. And most of us are also facing abuse situations because the standard operating procedure is to accuse the veteran of some kind of child abuse or spouse abuse.
Yes, I was accused of all kinds of things. Yep.
In many, many cases, the situation is deteriorating so much that the former spouses are abusing the children, using the children as a weapon against the veteran, which is a form of child abuse that leads to parental alienation, which is another form of child abuse. But on top of that, a lot of problems happen because the children end up in a situation where the former spouse is shacking up with somebody who's abusing the children, or they just neglect the children, or they just ignore the children, or they just take out all their frustrations on the children. And in many cases, the single parent household of the custodial parent doesn't have enough money left over, even with the money being stolen, because a lot of the money coming out of the veterans goes to the state instead of the former spouse. So they're basically, latchkey kids. And in many cases, they end up drugs, alcohol, and abuse. And I've got more horror stories than I can count.
Bob?
End up getting molested and really abused. And all of this, as Child Protection Services keeps them in a bad situation to steal money from the veteran or the other parent. That's
very quickly regarding the abuse thing. When my ex kidnapped my daughter and ran, I was stationed in Korea at the time. I was stationed at 8th Army there. She ran to initially Florida, then Maryland, then Texas, and then finally cornered her in Pierce County. Her attorney that was advising her put her in a safe house for battered and abused women, many of whom were alcoholics and druggies to begin with. So my ex had my 2.5-year-old daughter in this fucking safe house just to make it look like I was a threat. They put her in absolute fucking harm's way. And when I found this out, one of my sergeants, Sergeant Barry, is with me. I'm in the first sergeant's office. I just about trashed the first sergeant's office. And even the colonel in the brigade is like, this guy had every reason to fuck your office up, man.
Right.
You pissed him off. You're probably lucky he didn't kill you.
You know what, Steve? I'm going to say that I have my ex-wife. I have a daughter who's 34. I got custody of her when she was 6 before I married my ex. So not the mother of my daughter. And one of the times she left me, she took my daughter and then our 2 babies that were 1 and 2 at the time. And she ran off and she hid out for like 4 days, which is technically felony kidnapping.
It is.
I had full custody of my daughter. Her mother wasn't allowed to see her. I was the sole custodian. Now, of course, I didn't want to upset the family because I didn't do anything, but she took me to court to try and get custody of my daughter. And the commissioner looked at her and she said, "Ma'am, I can't I don't have any rights." But the 2 babies who are ours together, I had to have visitation with them. And the reason they do that is because it covers their asses. If something happened, that commissioner or judge made a decision, to give both parents access, and then something happened to the child, then their asses are on the line. So they will, to quote,
but Don,
err on the side of caution to cover their asses.
Yeah, covering your ass and erring on the side of caution is not covered.
No,
the Constitution.
It's not.
She went to the shelter, got the brochures and everything in the playbook. What these people do. Went through the motions that they all do to try and make themselves look like victims.
That's
Yep.
why I came up with Administrative Violence Divorce and Custody Edition.
Yeah.
And when I look at this, I'm not looking at it as, just one fight in family court. That's a frontal assault for the dude, and that is going to be just absolutely fucked up for you. But here's the thing. You need to think of the soon-to-be ex-wife or baby mama as your fucking enemy.
Yeah.
And listen, around that family court, there are at least a half a dozen, sometimes more bureaucracies that you can get the baby mother or soon-to-be ex-wife tangled up in, like state and federal income tax fraud. You can report them to the police for unsavory behavior. You can report to CPS. Of course, you're going to have to do that anonymously, because if they find out you're the actual father, they disregard anything you have to say.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
if you can file anonymous, a minimum of 3 complaints, and each complaint has 3 verifiable, truthful pieces of information, they will take action. And the minute they start that, you file an emergency motion for custody because of a CPS investigation. Or if there's like, for instance, your baby mama or your soon-to-be ex-wife likes to go to the bar every now and again. You borrow your buddy's car. You get a burner cell phone. You wait down the street. The minute she leaves that bar, gets in her car and starts driving, you call in a DWI. And you say she was swerving, she almost hit somebody. Give them the plate number, the make and model, and just watch.
Yeah.
They will do an automatic breathalyzer. If you see them put handcuffs on her, she's getting popped for DWI or operating under the influence. File another emergency motion for custody. Then she has to not, because if it's a frontal assault by you, she's already got the pillboxes, interlocking sector of fire. She's got, indirect. She's got fast movers. But the minute that she has to fight on multiple battlefields, it's less resources, and you can outmaneuver them that way.
Well, in family court too, I have a buddy that's going through all this too, Popp, and it's like she has domestics, same thing. But where do they go? They still go to the money.
Correct.
Always
Go to the money. So you could be smoking crack, you could be doing whatever. They're gonna go to the money.
But here's the thing:
states make millions of dollars off of this.
Stand by. The minute they do that, right? And they say you have verifiable scumbaggery for the mother.
Sure.
When the court sides with her, then that is a federal sexual discrimination lawsuit at a minimum.
Okay.
All right. And if we have enough people just saying, all right, fuck you, federal court, fuck
Right.
off, avalanche of fucking complaints. At some point, they're going to be like, this is not worth the juice is not worth the squeeze to fuck with these people.
Right. And I think that's where Bob was going with the whole, like, I use the enforcement. Where's the enforcement? Well, if enough judges get sued, they're going to raise their ears. They're going to be like, we got a problem here. So
And as the district courts start stacking up case after case, are state judges required to obey the supreme law of the land? Yes or no? They're going to have to answer it sooner or later.
Watch Grunt Speak live every Tuesday and Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern. And if you want to join Popp for Supporter Sundays, go to redonkulous.com/donate and make a monthly pledge. A link is in the Meat Gazer box.